Welcome to Mommispace, the podcast for moms of all stages. My name is Aubrey Coots, and this podcast was created to give moms a voice to share their experiences and to share that there is not just one way to be a mom. This is a place where you can learn to love the woman inside the mother. Welcome back to Mommispace. This is Aubrey, and today I am here with Bethany Moore. And Bethany is a fellow adoptive mom that I started following through Instagram a few years ago and just have been really encouraged by how she has grown her family and just what that's looked like for her personally and how she got started with that. So I reached out to her and I'm really excited to hear more from her today and hear more about how that started, how her journey into motherhood began. So Bethany, welcome to Mommispace.
Thank you so much for having me on here, Aubrey. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So to get started, could you just tell us a little about yourself and your family and the story of your journey into motherhood?
Yes, so like you said, my name is Bethany, and I am a 29-year-old single foster and adoptive mom. I'm enjoying the last few months of being in my 20s before I turned 30. But I was a teacher for about 5 years, and that's what led me into becoming a foster parent and eventually to adopt. And I currently work for my dad's company. He owns Maple Street Biscuit Company, and I do like a lot of their online social media things, which I'm so thankful for because it is a remote job, so I can be home with the 3 kids if they are sick or, whatever happens. So I'm very thankful for the flexibility that is there. And so I do have 3 children. Franklin's my oldest. He's 4. I adopted him through the foster system, and he was actually my very first placement. And my middle child, as of right now, she's in foster care, but I'm actually adopting her on Tuesday. So by the time this broadcast,
Yay!
She'll be adopted, yes. And her name is going to be Catherine. We're going to call her Kit for short. And so I don't know if I said that she's 3. And then my youngest son, Theo, he's going to be 2 in January, and I adopted him last May, and he's actually Franklin, my oldest biological brother. So I'm very thankful that the boys can grow up together, biological siblings, but I also just love how they're all bonded and they all just act as if they're biological siblings. So I think that's really sweet to see every day. And so being a single mom of 3 toddler age children is a mess and really hard, but also just so sweet, and very thankful for this crazy messy season that we're in right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. I didn't realize how close they were in age. They're like about the same as mine.
Yeah, I know. When you said that earlier, I was thinking that. I'm like, yeah, it's hard when they're so close. I'm thankful for it because, they can play together, but yeah, like going to the store and having meltdowns and stuff. I'm like, ooh, wow, it's like almost like twins at some points when I think about it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I know that you said that teaching 5 years kind of led into you wanting to do foster care or adopt. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I always wanted to adopt. I knew that was something I desired to do, especially if I got married. And then I was on Facebook one day and I saw that there was this video of this young missionary called Katie Davis, and she was single and just talking about her story of loving the people of Uganda, and she was in the process of adopting as a single person. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm single. I love children. I've always loved adoption. That's something I could do. And so I started researching adoption, and I just also saw how much it costs to adopt. And I was like, oh goodness, I don't know if I can afford it. So then I Googled, okay, what is the cheapest way to adopt? How could I afford this being single and a teacher? And foster care popped up. And then I was like, okay, no, I don't want to do that. I'd heard the horror stories. My parents had fostered when they first got married, and it was pretty traumatic for everybody involved. And so I thought, well, if they were married and couldn't, it was hard for them. So how could I do it as a single person? So I it's like, okay, well, that's that. I'm not going to, foster and probably not adopt if I'm still single. So then when I became a teacher, I was at a Title I school, which is where they qualify for free and reduced lunch. And it was really a difficult teaching experience for me. It was really hard. I cried a lot. But it was so good too because I love my students and I saw where they came from. And some of my students were put in the foster system. And so all that research I had done about foster care those years previous came back to my memory. But then it was like, wow, these are children who I love and they might be removed from their families and people need to step up for them and love them well in this season. And so it took several years, but God really softened my heart towards it. And so I became a licensed foster parent then, and I was open to taking my students in if they needed me, but also any children in my city that needed a home to be in. And so it's funny how, I desired to adopt, ever since I was a kid, but God then made me realize, okay, fostering, you should really be doing fostering, but then open to adoption if that came on the table. But I'm thankful that God used that teaching experience to really show me like firsthand, like there is such a need for good foster parents.
Yeah. Wow. I love hearing like the backstory of how people, get to where they are. And even talking about Katie Davis, that like trigger that I read Kisses from Katie, like her book,
So good.
years ago. And that was part of kind of like the wheels turning in my head
Oh
and
my
like the beginning
goodness.
stages of our adoption journey before even like meeting my husband or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. That's like a cool similarity
Oh, I
with
love
her
that.
specifically. Yeah. But yeah, that's really sweet. And that kind of answered my second question was how did you decide to say yes to adopting? But you answered that very well. I should just read my questions and, stick to the script. Yeah, but that's great. Okay, so the next question I have for you, I know, like you said, you get to adopt Kit on Tuesday, and by
Yes.
the time this comes out, that will have happened. Do you think that you will adopt again in the future? Why or why not?
That is definitely the most asked question right now is will we continue to foster or will we be open to adopting more? And I don't like have the set number of my head of how many children that I see myself having, but I don't feel like our family is complete. I do desire to foster more. I want to keep my license open and just see what God does with our family. I want to help more, and then of course open to adoption if that happens. But my kids are so young, and it is a difficult season having 3 toddlers. So I want to be realistic about what I can handle on my own. But I'm very open to fostering more and adopting. I think just see what the Lord does with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. I can relate to that. I'm like, I don't know
Yeah,
what that will look
exactly.
like, but maybe we'll
Yeah,
see.
but I
Yeah,
don't want to close my license because it's so hard to,
it's a lot of work.
do the classes. Yeah, I know that's so much work. I'm like, I do not want to, have
Uh,
to do all that again. So I just want to keep it open and just, see what the Lord does. So we'll see.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I'm just kind of curious, like for you personally, after adopting Franklin, what was that process like?
Yeah, so it's all kind of like together there. So I adopted Franklin, and then I said yes to my foster daughter, and then the
Okay.
very next day, my son was born. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I was like, all right there. So she came to me January 29th, and then Theo was born January 30th. So I expected that phone call, and I was like, oh my goodness, I might have these 2 placements right, day by day, but they didn't call me.
Okay.
And but he was placed with another family member, so he was safe.
Okay.
So we knew he was, being taken care of well, and just not knowing, what was going to happen with that. But whenever he was 9 months old, he was placed with us, and
Okay.
so I think that was God too, because I was overwhelmed having 2 toddlers so close in age, and then I would have been totally willing to take Theo in as well, but he was born preemie with a lot of medical things going on, so I think God knew that probably would have been too much for me to handle. I had just started a new job as well, so there was a lot going on. So he was loved well, taken care of really well, and then at the right time, he came into our family. And so, and with that as well, we have the biological family who took care of him, very active in our lives, and they come over all the time. And it's just a great open adoption. So I don't know if that would have happened if he came to me immediately. So
Yeah.
even though, back then I was, maybe wanting him to come right then, that wasn't what was supposed to happen. So it's just worked out the perfect timing for it all.
Wow. Like you said, you're like, I was expecting to get a call a few days after he was born and
Yeah.
then 9 months later. Um, yeah, that's neat. That's cool. And that's really encouraging to hear that you guys have a good relationship with the bio family. And
It's funny because if you asked me, especially before I fostered, would I be willing to have an open adoption? I think I would have been like, no, it's going to be closed. We're going to keep her safe in our little bubble. But God has done so much work there as well, because in the middle of that, I realized, if it's a safe option, that is really healthy for the kids to, have a relationship with bio family. And so I'm thankful that, we're doing that, and we're kind of just seeing where it goes as time goes. But it's been really beautiful. But 4 years ago, I would have never thought that I would have, we would have this, but I'm very thankful for it.
yeah, that's really sweet. Okay, so the next question that I have for you is, what have been some of the challenges in the adoption process or in having adopted children, and how have you overcome that?
So I've never had biological children, but I always say that I feel like adopting is like labor. It is not easy. I guess any way that you bring a child into your family is difficult, and you're bumps along the road, things happen that you don't expect to happen. And that definitely happened with the adoptions of my kids. And, it's just, sadly the system is broken. And so nobody really knows what's going to happen, and there's going to be bumps in the road even. And so the adoption process is hard, but I don't think people should let that fear of being difficult stop them, because the kids are worth it. They're worth the heartbreak. They're worth the frustrating journey that it takes to get to adoption day. So I guess I would describe the adoption experience like that. But even having biological children, things happen that we don't expect, but people still have biological children. We should think that was fostering or
Right.
adopting as well as that, but they're worth it.
Yeah.
And then having my children adopted, it's hard because, there are struggles. Like, they sadly, even though they're very young, they saw things that are very traumatic, experienced things, and because of that, some of my kids have disabilities. We're dealing with trauma every day, and and it's hard. And there are some days where the behavior is really difficult and frustrating, but it's because of what they've experienced, that it is the way it is. So loving them through that. And so that would definitely be a hardship of adoption, is that there's always going to be trauma. I think for me, I was naively before would think, okay, when you adopt, you're good because they have a family, so it's going to be unicorns and rainbows, but forever you're going to have to go through the seasons of dealing with the trauma. And as they grow, they're going to have questions, who was I born with? I'm single, so they're going to know, like, okay, well, where's my dad?
Yeah.
And so they're going to ask questions, and so it's going to be difficult in that as well. So just knowing that it's never going to be easy, but of course it's worth it, and things that, yeah.
In the day-to-day, and this is more so for me, but I'm sure there's other people listening that could maybe relate, with having kids that have seen hard things and that have come from hard places. What are some of the practical ways that you love them through that?
I know that's like something I probably need help with too, because
I definitely need
they
help. That's why I'm asking.
I know it's so hard, because they're like, in the moment, it's like frustrating to me. And it's like, when they're having meltdowns or there's sensory issues or things where I'm just like, can't we just have this nice moment and not have this problem? But it's almost like they taking that step back and take that moment and letting each other have that breathing, and just, I don't know. I always have to take a break and let them take a break, then come back to it, and trying to love them through it. But it is hard, and it's hard because, they can't control it. And yeah, it's difficult. And each one of my kids experience the trauma, different things differently. So that's difficult as well. I only had 3 of them at once going through something. But yeah, if you have any guidance on that as well, let me know. But I'm always open to, like, going to counseling and support groups and things. For me, like, just tonight, actually just came back from going to an adoption support group where it's a lot of just adoptive moms just like talking to each other. But it's been so helpful to me, and bringing what I've learned from these adoptive mamas back to my homes that I could help my kids, have a better day and things. So I think for adoptive mamas, if you can, have friends who are going through it as well and maybe can, get wisdom on how to help your babies, that's really big too, because I think it can be isolating alone. Like, am I doing this right? Am I handling this right? Is this because they're a toddler, or is it because they experienced trauma? Is this attachment issues? Like, what is going on here? It's really hard to navigate that and
Yeah.
figure it out. So you're not alone in that.
Yeah. No, that's a great that's a great word. It's really encouraging. Last weekend I went to a like a 1-day retreat for foster and adoptive mamas called Mosaic Retreat. So
Oh,
any Southern California moms listening,
okay.
you can check that out for next year. But I don't know if there's like similar conferences or retreats like that in your area. But it was so good just being in a room
Mm,
with a bunch of moms that just get it, like
yes.
where a lot of the time, I don't know if you can relate to this feeling. Like, I feel like I have a lot of really sweet mom friends that have littles that are the same age as my kids and they play well together. But there's just like some pieces that I'm like, I don't even know how to explain like how I'm feeling about this or how it's hard or like I don't know why my kid's having a meltdown for the third time today
Yeah.
about something so small, but
Yeah.
just being in a room full of other moms that are like, yep, we've been there
Yep,
and
we
it's
get
hard
it.
and it's going to be
Yeah.
okay, like that's
Yes.
that's such a great encouragement just to have other people that can relate to that because
Yeah.
um yes, motherhood is the same in a lot of ways, but the route that we've chosen to be mothers, it is different. And it
It
has
is.
it has
Yeah.
different challenges the same way I'm sure that having bio kids has different challenges that we
Yeah.
don't fully understand. So
Yeah, for sure.
um yeah,
Agree.
that's really good. What have been, so we talked about some of the challenges, some of the hard parts. What for you have been some of the greatest joys?
I think every day, of course, like I said, our life is a hot mess and we're like making it. But I get to step back and just see the kids playing and just the funny things they say. And it does bring me so much joy to say, like, okay, yes, we've come through hard places and we experienced so much trauma, but God has just been so good to just, bring us together. And we are a family. It's sad how we got here, but I'm just thankful that, we do have each other.
Yeah.
So that is just bringing me a lot of joy. And I've talked before about, the open adoption that we have. And that's just been so amazing to see. And just like, this is incredible. Like the other day, Theo's aunt and uncle came over and they brought these like pizzas for the kids to make the pizzas together. We baked them and they hung out and it's just so beautiful. And I love how, yes, Theo is technically their, you know, that's their nephew, but they love on Franklin. They love on Kit, my daughter, and they're coming to her adoption day. And they're like, yes, we
Mm,
are family. We're in this together. And so that has just been such a sweet surprise that I never expected happening as well through all this, and just a beautiful, blended family that we have. And so I just love what God has done and, grown our family in this way. And, life would have been a lot easier, of course, and simpler. I hadn't just enjoyed my singleness and, gone on trips and, gone to the gym and stuff like that. Not gained my foster care 15, like I say all the time. But my life, it's just so beautiful now. I'm thankful for it. I wouldn't change anything about it. So,
yeah, that's super cool. I love hearing that. And like, yeah, them being like, yeah, we'll be there. We're family. Like, that's such a sweet
yeah,
picture just of
it
like what
is.
adoption is and what it can be. So that's super cool.
Yeah. Yes. I told her today, like, okay, Uncle Charles and Aunt Titi are coming to adoption. She's like, oh, my adoption. Like, she was just so excited.
Oh,
Like, all these people who love you will be there. So thankful for
yeah.
that.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you feel like your kids understand adoption at all?
Franklin's surprising me how he seems to be getting it. Because, of course, we're just very open with it
Yeah.
and like age appropriate with it. And I never know, like, what are they taking in? What are they hearing? But he said, I can't remember exactly what it was. But he just said something today that was like, whoa, he really seems to be getting it more and more. Um, so, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what he asks as he gets older and just, praying that I can navigate it well and use the right words and things. But I'm glad that he's already seems to be taking it in some and, saying some things about it and things. But they know adoption's special and they know it's a big deal. And
Yeah.
they know that they didn't, come from my belly and
Yeah.
things. But yeah, so interesting as they grow, what else they ask about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can kind of relate to this with your kids too, but we're like a transracial family.
Mm.
Like my kids are Black and my husband's Latino and I'm white,
Oh.
obviously. So my kids, like, it's like if they don't realize now, they're going to realize very quickly.
Exactly.
This
Yeah,
and this doesn't make this. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And so we talk about it a lot. We're like, mommy has white skin, or they say my skin's pink. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And you have beautiful brown skin and daddy has lighter brown skin. And, like we talk about, and you're adopted and God brought you to our family and you didn't grow in my tummy. But yeah, it is, I'm curious, like as they grow, what, what their view will be.
Yeah.
And I think just like, it is kind of cool that today, like in our culture, talking about adoption and not like hiding it from your kids their whole lives is like, it's way more common for kids to know that they're adopted and to know that that's like a special thing. And yeah, and I'm sure that we will have, challenges that come up along the way just because we look different and different things like that. But it's still like such a sweet picture of how like God formed our families.
For
So
sure.
yeah. Why or why not? But I guess I'm assuming why. Do you think adoption is important and valuable for any family to consider?
Yeah, I am, partial to foster care adoptions because that's what we did. But I would encourage people, if they're wanting to grow their family, to consider adopting from foster care, not fostering to adopt, but
Right.
adopting children who are in foster care, parents' rights have been terminated, and are just waiting for a family. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that is what's happening and that their children desiring to be adopted right now. And so I would definitely encourage people to look into that in their area. And I think a lot of people just assume they can't afford adoption because that's what I thought too. Like, I'm
Yeah.
single, that's something I can't do. But if you adopt from foster care, usually it's free or very little. And a lot of times there's benefits from adopting through foster care. And so that's why I encourage people when they say, I can't afford it. I'm like, oh, there is an option. There is a way you can. And
Right.
their children right now, they desire to be adopted and they want a family. So I definitely would encourage that. And of course, I know domestic adoption, private and international, that is amazing as well. But this is just, what I know, and definitely
Yeah.
encourage people to go through that route.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I know as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And in the same ways, it's like, yeah, there are pieces to it that there are a lot of unknowns and they're
Yeah.
just like you said earlier, it's like the system is broken and there's a lot
Yeah.
of unpredictable factors. But yeah, like whether it's even just doing foster care and loving kids that need it for however long that is, even if they do move from your home, we've learned like through having two little girls and losing them or them moving, even though that was probably the hardest thing I'd been through, just how sweet that was still,
Yeah.
and how it just like opened our eyes to the need of like, man, there are kids that just need loving homes.
Yeah.
And that's like part of the reason why I wanted to focus on adoption for a month, because I think it, like, more and more people are adopting, but it is still a foreign thing to a lot of people too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Or it has this like stigma of like people only adopt if they struggle with infertility or if they're single. And even some of the people I'm interviewing, even myself, like I haven't been able to get pregnant in 5 years. And so it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'll ever have kids biologically, but I wouldn't have changed how our family has grown. And I know you can probably relate to that too. You're like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm a single woman. I'm turning 30 soon. And I don't know if there's a man in my future or not, but you probably wouldn't change how your family has grown. So
Right, exactly.
just
Yeah.
breaking that stigma and that wall. We're just like, no, more people need to adopt because it's a beautiful thing. And yeah, And God works in so many pieces of it, which is super cool. So
He does.
yeah. Okay, so this is another like throwing it at you question. So
Okay.
if you need to think about it for a second, let me know. But
Okay.
how do you feel like your family has come alongside you, or have they come alongside you in this whole process? I guess how have they been helpful to you, or maybe it's not even your family, but church family or just community around you? Like, what has that looked like in regards to support?
Well, this is such a good question. So when I first watched that video of Katie Davis, I did tell my mom about it. I was like, so this is a really cool thing that I could do. I could adopt, it's possible for me to adopt as a single person, and just kind of throwing it out there. And my mom was like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, but that, that would be really hard, just, that to be a single parent all of a sudden would be really difficult. And she kind of just, said that's that. And then, but through the years, God has softened my heart about I could foster as a single person, adopt as a single person. The more I talked about it, the more that my parents were like, yeah, that's true. You could do that. And it softened their hearts as well. But I knew I couldn't do it without their support. And I wouldn't want to. Because if you're single doing it, even if you're married, you do need the village, your support system to be on board with you, because it is a lot to do. And so thankfully, when I got licensed, my parents were just fully on board. And my dad even went with me when I went to get that initial interview, because he wanted to ask questions as well and just to be there to support me. And every time a child's been placed with me, my parents would come over right away to meet them and to see them. And they are like my backups. If I need anything, they're there. And I really do appreciate that. I know that if I had biological children, they wouldn't treat, my adopted children, foster children any differently. They're treating them spoiled rotten exactly if I had bio children. So I really appreciate that. And they just love them well. And so I'm very thankful for that. But it did take them a while to get there. They weren't like super excited right away. God worked on their hearts a lot as well to, be there. Because it is, it's a lot on them, to help me. And the kids are crazy. So when we go out, it's not easy. We go on trips, it's not easy. It's hard. But I'm thankful that they do it. They go on trips with us, and they are so sweet about it, and they love the kids so well, and the kids love them. And we know I have friends who are so supportive, and, they love what we do. My church, they love it as well. And the support group that I went to tonight was because of my church started wanting to do a ministry for foster parents and adoptive parents. And I'm thankful that if I ever needed anything, I know I could go to them. They could be my backup and help me, and they want to do that. I need to let my pride go and ask help more often, because I have a hard time asking for help. But I'm thankful that if I did need something, that they would be there to help me. So
yeah, thanks for answering that.
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
super good. And I agree with you. Like, whether it's having parents that are on board is definitely helpful. I'm really thankful that both my parents and my in-laws have been really involved and treat our kids as if they, came from us. So I'm really thankful for that. But yeah, like you said, having church family, having your village, having your people around you. And I can totally relate to the pride piece as well.
Yeah. It's so hard.
I know. Yeah. But it's important. And I think and the more that we do, because the funny thing is, when I think about it, I'm like, if any of my friends needed help with their kids or with anything, I would help them in a minute. And it's like, why do I not think that people would do the same?
I know. I think when I get down to it, I think, well, I signed up for this. I feel like if I don't do it, then people are like, well, you signed up for it, you should be able to do it yourself. I'm like, I wouldn't think that if I had biological children. Like, why? I don't know why do that, because I've fostered and adopted. Like, there's no way one person can do it all. You need help no matter what. So I definitely let my guard down there and be like, please help me. Because they want to do it. They want to help, so.
And sometimes it's just thinking of practical ways that people can help. Because I think when people are like, let me know what I can do. I think I'm trying to remember who I was talking to, but they were like, sometimes it's more helpful if someone just texts you and says, hey, I'm going to bring dinner on Tuesday. You're like,
yes, that's good.
Hallelujah. That is good. But maybe if it's even asking for specific things like that, like, I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not good at that either, but maybe for people listening, like if you know foster or adoptive mamas, ask if you can come over and vacuum or mop their
Yes.
floors or watch their kids for an hour so they can go grab a
That's
coffee
good.
in peace.
I agree. Like, just do it because I feel like we probably won't ask or feel bad asking. And yeah, like you said, not being vague about it, but saying like, this night this week, we're gonna take the kids and y'all do something. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, what are some of your favorite resources for adoptive or potential adoptive families?
Okay, so for book, I read this a long time ago. I need to read it again. The Connected Child by Karen Purvis, right? That's a really good book to read about attachment and just everything. And then for me, honestly, at least in this season, I have a very hard time like reading books. So I get a lot of my info from like blogs and Instagram. And so I would say following Foster the Family blog. She talks about adoption and foster care.
Yeah.
She's a really great resource, and the Archibald Project, they do a really great job talking about all things. I love that they talk about like international adoption and foster care and domestic, and just they interview children who've been adopted and are adults now. And so I'll definitely look up those resources for help.
Thank you for sharing all of that on adoption and on your journey. I love to close with this last question, and it isn't necessarily related to adoption, but it can be. But what is the legacy that you want to leave for your children?
Um, I think for me, I mean, this is the main reason I want to keep fostering as well, is I want my kids to grow up wanting to help others and to have compassion for people, they've gone through the same thing they've gone through, but just anybody really. And that's why I want them to continue to foster as they grow up and to love others well. So definitely would want that. And I think I also want them to look back in the season and to know, like, we can do things that are maybe uncomfortable or hard, but they're so worth doing to serve others, to love others really well. And I think for my daughter, I'd want her to know that, she doesn't have to be married to do big things.
Yeah.
And, in her singleness, she can pursue her dreams and passions and help others. And I hope, that she can like see mommy doing this single, that she can maybe do hard things as well. Like really good, amazing things too. So, and her singleness.
Yeah, I love that. And that is a unique perspective. I haven't interviewed a single mom yet so far.
Hmm.
So that was a piece I was excited about as well.
Yeah.
And I agree with that 100%. I have amazing single women around me that are doing great things in their lives and for the Lord. And yeah, so I love that legacy, wanting to leave that for her, and just for your kids as a whole, wanting to do hard things to love and serve others well is really
Yeah.
beautiful. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out all of the goodness from today's episode on the show notes and share this with a friend if it impacted you in any way. You can also leave a review on iTunes so other mamas can join in the movement of loving the woman inside the mother. Join our online Mommispace community every day by following us on Instagram at Mommispace, where you can interact with me, some of our past guests, ask simple or hard questions, and give your valuable input on how to make Mommispace an even more beautiful and safe place for mamas all over the world. All my love to you, Mama. You are enough.